Hello, everybody. My name is Ratnos, and today we have some very exciting news, which is the first talent tree previews since the Dragonflight initial announcement. And we have the Druid work in progress ones for all four specs and a bunch of philosophy. So I'm going to start off with philosophy, and then I'm going to go over the kind of generic Druid tree, and then we'll talk just a little bit about the spec specific ones. I haven't played too much Druid. I actually did play. I progressed as Druid in Sanctum. I played Guardian Druid back then. But I haven't played too much of the other specs. Only messed around with Balance and Resto a little bit. Feral, also actually a little. I've played more Feral than most this expansion, but still not a spec or a class that I'm super expert in. But still, I think should be very interesting to look at. So first of all, talent system philosophy. A lot of this is rehash about wanting to give people more options, visually an intuitive way to represent the different paths one could follow, communicate dependencies and magnitude intuitively. So just ways that it's kind of better than the reworked talent trees. But you have not one tree, but two. You have your class tree and your spec tree. And the class tree contains a core set of abilities available to all specs in the class and has a higher proportion of utility choices. You can choose some abilities or passives that draw from the identity of other specs to give your character some hybrid flavor, or grab something particularly useful for certain content. Whereas the spec tree is then, it's kind of like a lot of really cool borrowed power, especially towards the bottom from the past 3 expansions that you're kind of choosing between. It's pretty cool. Will you have to always build a certain way? No. The most basic building blocks of your rotation will be either learned from levels 1 to 10, awarded automatically, or placed at the top of your spec tree. So they don't want anything to be super important. But yeah, they stuff like interrupts and Mythic Plus, they want to put somewhere that still leaves you a lot of picks, but you can still screw up and pick a lot of bad options. And you could certainly make your character a lot worse than somebody who is doing good things with their tree if you wanted to. So yeah, there's 61 total points. You get 30 into your class and 31 into your spec, or sorry, 31 into your class and 30 into your spec. And that's a lot of total choice, which does mean that some of the stuff we currently have in Shadowlands is being taken away and put into this tree. At the end of the day, hopefully they're thinking that we want to have the same power and complexity, but instead of the power and complexity being a little bit more on rails, they want us to have a little bit more of a choice what that is coming from. Ultimately, I don't think that has a whole lot to do necessarily with talent trees as a tool, and instead it has a whole lot to do with how well they balance the different options such that it's not a huge mistake to go with a certain half of the tree versus the other. But I think it definitely could work. And I've seen some complaints about, rebuying things that are baseline in Shadowlands is a bad thing, but that's definitely a good thing. Gotta make sure that we don't get the game too bloated this early on, especially because hopefully talent trees are something that they can build on going forward. Okay, so yeah, first class tree pointed to level 10, spec tree at level 11 alternates from there. Certain basic abilities in the class tree are automatically given and do not cost any points. We have an example of that in Druid tree. Most talents have prerequisites. These will be indicated by arrows. If a talent has any arrows leading to it, you must have fully purchased at least one of the previous talents, because there are multi-point talents, and always pointing downwards or diagonally downwards. And there's these requirement, right? You need to spend 8 total points before you get below the 4th row, so you can't just rush down the tree and get to the bottom really quick. You have to spend points in the top, and that's going to mean you'll have to branch out a little bit at the top, and you can't just make a very bottom heavy tree where you rush the bottom and then take the whole bottom of the tree, but you are going to need to take quite a bit from the middle and the top. And then yeah, these octagonal ones are choices. So far it looks like each of them is only a 2-choice node rather than a 3-choice node, but yeah, that's what's going on there. They're mutually exclusive. You can only take one. It also looks like you can go up rather than down if you want in this talent tree. So for instance, you could go whoop, and then you go up over here and down and then back up over this way if you wanted. So if you wanted, say, Skull Bash, but you didn't want to take these Guardian Feral nodes up here, potentially you could come down this way and then up and over and then down again. You're still probably taking some nodes that you're not super excited about, but you're getting an interrupt, and so you're not allowed to complain. Okay, so we have now the Druid ones, and let's see. Dragonflight Talent Update is a great opportunity to let the Druid explore the flexibility inherent to the class. In many ways, the affinity concept from Legion through Shadowlands was anticipating something we're hoping to re-emphasize, the ability to choose elements of various shapeshift forms and roles. That idea is now expanded into a class talent tree that has paths relating to every spec, where deeper investment obtains more of that spec's fundamental buttons. Various utility and crowd control are placed in optional locations off every branch, as well as in a central area that's easy for every specialization to access. Our hope is that every spec can play in a somewhat traditional manner, where it fills out the complete path laid out for it in the core tree and then picks up a choice of miscellaneous utility, or a more customized manner, where it reaches deeper into other specs' paths. So the way this works here is, again, all 4 specs are going to have the same Druid tree, right? But there's actually a little bit going on here right at the start. So right in the first row, we have these 4 nodes, and they're each granted by default to one of the 4 specs. So top left, we've got Rake, then we got Frenzied Regen, then we got Rejuve, then we got Starfire, and those are awarded by default if you're Feral, Guardian, Resto, or Balanced, respectively, and kind of give you a starting point into the tree. I don't know if you'll be allowed to choose, like if you're playing Feral and you're starting over here in the tree, if you'd be able to choose Starfire and go down directly that way and have like 2 initial points in the tree, or if Rake is just your starting point, and it would mean that getting over to this side of the tree is going to require fully pathing horizontally over there. That's going to be something that will be potentially important. And then, yeah, so you're starting off up there. Then there's a bunch of good stuff fairly early on. In row 2, we've got Improved Bark Skin, which is here, Bark Skin Duration. And then we've got Frenzied Regen, just a strong choice that you get by default if you're a Guardian. But I imagine that a lot of Druids are going to want to come over here and pick up Improved Bark Skin, Frenzied Regen, and Improved Frenzied Regen, which gives you all healing received increased by 20% while you have Frenzied Regen or Bark Skin up. Most of the other stuff near the top of the tree is fairly spec-specific. You know, if there's like a bunch of physical damage, bleed stuff up here, so, you know, you're taking this if you're a cat or bear, and you're not at all interested if you're a Resto Druid, unless you're going to try and cat weave, and you're definitely never interested if you're a Balanced Druid, right? So the fact that Balanced Druid's going to have a hard time pathing over there, not a problem. Although maybe they're interested in going and grabbing this stuff. There's some other stuff along the way here that you might be interested in, such as Remove Corruption, Curse and Poison Dispel. We've got Hibernate over here. Soothe is down. Where is Soothe? Here. It's in the middle of the tree, so pretty easy for everybody to get to. We've got Typhoon. Over here is Vortex and Mass Entangle. And actually down towards the bottom of the tree is Innervate. So you can get Innervate as a non-Balanced Druid if you come down this side. Now, the thing is, you can see the easiest path over from from Feral and Guardian, it's going to require a couple extra points invested in some other stuff. But actually, this thing with the Cenarian Ward icon, that's on row 5. I'm pretty sure that one's pretty good. Yeah, that one is increased healing taken. Healing done and healing taken. So that one's kind of just a good node for anybody. So I could imagine Guardians and Feral Druids coming up here, getting Thick Hide, reduced damage taken, getting Soothe, getting increased healing taken, and then you got to take something a little weird. Wait, I guess, is this one? Yeah, okay, it's on row 7. You'd have to take Wild Growth or come down through Sunfire in order to get to Mass Root, Vortex, and then Innervate. And then at the very bottom of the tree in row 10, there's Furor, which is when you shift into a form you haven't been in for 20 seconds, abilities cost no rage, energy, astral power, or mana for 4 seconds. Kind of cool. Heart of the Wild, abilities not associated with your chosen spec are substantially empowered for 45 seconds. So this is pretty cool because it's like current Heart of the Wild, but instead of picking your affinity, it's just all of them. So you could be a Resto Druid that gets the benefit of either Balance or Feral or Bear Heart of the Wilds as you want, or even more potentially powerfully, like a Guardian Druid can get DPS Heart of the Wild or Healing Heart of the Wild at multiple different points in an encounter, depending on how you want. And then down here at the very bottom right, we've got Nature's Vigil. For 20 seconds, all single target healing and damage spells and abilities also heal a nearby target based on the amount done. 20% for heals, 40% for damage spells. So very powerful effect here. That is something that will be extremely potent as well. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of good stuff in here. There's a lot of stuff you're going to want to spend your points on, especially, I mean, no matter what you're playing, you're going to want to take a lot of your, like if you're playing Feral or Guardian, you're going to want to take all this garbage up here in the top left. If you're playing Balance, obviously you're going to make sure that you grab like all of, actually, Balance has a lot more choice. There's not too much like straight up, oh, I need this for my damage. Like obviously you're coming down and getting the Sunfire stuff, but beyond that, you're probably pretty free to spend a lot of points here. You probably have less committed than the others. On the other hand, you do probably want to go over and grab stuff like this. Maybe, Feral or Resto and Balance thinking about even going and getting Skull Bash, at least Resto potentially considering it, especially if you're cat weaving and this stuff is good for you anyways. Who knows? Or maybe you go for a little bit more of a conservative build. I'm not sure. I don't know how many different possible builds there are going to be here, but either way, it's pretty exciting. At least right now, it's exciting, right? It might be the kind of thing where, like, okay, it devolves to cookie cutter, but at least for us right now, it's pretty fun to think about. And definitely, I'd encourage you to look through and see what all the abilities are doing. I'm obviously kind of skimming through here. Okay, next thing I want to talk about. Okay, so we've got the balance tree. Now, the balance tree, you start off with just Eclipse, some very basic stuff, improved Eclipse, improved Moonfire and Sunfire. Then as soon as you get to the third row, you've already got Force of Nature, Warrior of Elune, Nature's Balance, and you could take all three of these, right? There's no exclusivity here, although it might be too many points, but you do need to spend 8 total points above the fifth row, right? So you're going to have to spend some points horizontally here in order to unlock. But the thing that really excites me about the DPS trees is the bottom rows. So as we start getting down to row 9, row 10, we start seeing, and row 8 even, there's some really cool choice rows here. So not super exciting, a Lunar Eclipse, Solar Eclipse Empowerment one. But then you've got Twin Moons versus Stellar Flare. You've got Oneth's Clear Vision versus Time-Worn Dreambinder, which Oneth's, at least, this was a good Legion legendary. Time-Worn Dreambinder might be what I don't recognize this, but this might be sort of like I don't remember what the Dreamcatcher did. I remember that was another good one. And then Incarn versus Convoke, Circle of Life and Death, Syzygy, I don't know what this means, but Celestial Alignment now blasts all targets between you and the selected area for astral damage and applies Moonfire and Sunfire to them, versus Pulsar, which is obviously a very powerful effect also that we know about. New Moon versus Fury of Elune. Improved Incarn or Convoke, which is Incarn lets you kind of get that Venthyr Paladin legendary effect where you can refund the cooldown if you don't need it the whole way through, or Convoke, increased chance to use an exceptional spell or ability. Adaptive Swarm versus Balance of all things. Orbit Breaker, this was a very fun Torghast power. And yeah, I mean, this sort of thing would probably be really exciting for M+ or AoE fights. So very, very cool. I mean, it's just such an exciting tree. And at 30 points, I feel like there's going to be a lot of really good stuff that you want down here. And you are going to want to spend as little as possible up near the top. But you do have to spend quite a bit, before these bottom exciting most 3 rows, right? You have to spend 20 points up here. You only get 10 total points to divide between these bottom points. So lots of really interesting stuff, lots of interesting choices, but also just like the choice of going left, going right is going to be really, really interesting. Okay, now over to Feral Druid. Feral Druid, a little bit less total exciting things. You've got stuff like Blood Talons versus Feral Frenzy, Incarn versus Convoke again, Draft of Deep Focus versus Apex Predator's Carving. So again, we're looking at legendary, but the thing is, Feral's had less exciting legendaries over the course of the last 3 expansions, like Bard power effects, than Balance has. So a little bit less exciting of a tree here. You can see it's a little bit less wide as well. Balance obviously has like 5 total row 9 choices, and Feral, I guess, also has 5, but you can see it's a little bit less of a like path and a little bit more of things that don't have another branch down to row 10. So yeah, again, I'm not a Feral Druid scientist. There's a lot of cool stuff potentially in here, but it does look like it's mostly just a lot of the legendaries that are in Shadowlands that you're going to choose from here. Okay, Guardian. Now, Guardian at the top, already again, you start off with getting just some basic stuff like Maul, Gore, Survival Instincts, right? Stuff that you're going to pick this stuff, and it's core how the spec works things that you're gonna grab. But then pretty quick we start getting to some interesting choices. Positive Outlook, other kinds of effects, Earth Warden, right, that we're familiar with already, Galactic Guardian, things that used to be mutually exclusive that now you can invest in getting both. And then we start getting down to Dream of Cenarius. When you take non-periodic damage, you have a chance equal to your crit chance to cause your next regrowth to be instant, free, castable in all forms. cannot occur more than once every 20 seconds. These sorts of effects in practice, people read these and think, oh, this scales crit, like this is not going to happen very often. Realistically, if you're tanking, you're probably taking a lot of instances of non-periodic damage, unless you're fighting something like the Jailer that autos once every 3 years for your whole health bar. So at least in like an M plus situation, this is going to occur every 20 seconds. You're going to get a free regrowth. But it's up against Thrash, grants you an Absorb Shield for 75% of all damage, and Maul as well, apparently. So that's obviously a very powerful passive effect, too. Guardian of Elune versus after the Wildfire. Each time you spend 200 rage, you heal nearby allies for 3% of your maximum health. Not theirs, yours. Which, depending on if this is uncapped, this could be really strong in raid fights for just HPS if you're stacked. But 200 rage is a lot, so maybe I'm reading something here that's not as exciting as it looks. This might be just the kind of thing you save points and don't pick. Then obviously we've got Convoke versus Incarn again, and then improved Convoke and improved Incarn, all the Druid effects. All the Druid trees basically have improved Convoke, improved Incarn, and Convoke and Incarn against each other. Rage of the Sleeper's back, immune to loss of control effects. This sort of thing is really potent on some fights. And then, yeah, Untamed Savagery versus Rend and Tear, so you could kind of go into the Thrash build and get the Radius, or you can make Thrash give you the Rend and Tear buff like it can right now. Yeah. So a couple different choices here for Guardian as well, but I the one, even though I haven't played much Moonkin, the Moonkin ones look really exciting near the bottom of their tree. And then finally we've got Resto. You're starting off with Life Bloom. You get then again just a bunch of stuff that's currently in game, and then pretty quick we're looking at like Shadowlands talents type stuff that you're or Shadowlands passives and talents that you're able to choose between. Soul to Forest, right? These kind of effects. Cultivation. And then we start getting down to row 7, which is below that 20 requirement. We've got lower targets being healed for more, an effect that's potentially quite strong on progression, but potentially, in some situations, this is like Shaman Mastery, right? Where sometimes it's pretty good, sometimes healers hate it, so kind of cool to be a talent. Cenarian Ward versus Abundance. I'm pretty sure that choice already exists on the tree, so obviously a 3 choice instead of a 2 choice from now. Stonebark as a probably something you save some points and don't pick. Where is Stonebark? I guess it's here, so you're probably picking it only if you want to go down this way. Spring Blossoms versus Overgrowth. So, single target healing, AoE healing. Rampant Growth. Regrowth heals for more over its duration. It's hot. Also applies to the target of your Life Bloom. So, kind of a beacon type effect there. Rejuve duration increased by 1 second, heals for an additional amount when it's your only hot on a target. Swift Bend heals the target for some amount over 9 seconds. So yeah, Grove 10, I mean, we've seen this effect before. And then your heal over time effects on their target complete their healing 100% faster, 45-second cooldown. So it's basically exsanguinate for your hots on a target versus Wild Growth has a chance to cause your next Rejuve or Regrowth to apply to 3 additional allies within 20 yards. So basically just unpredictable throughput increase in AoE healing. So again, single target healing, AoE healing, passive RNG, active playstyle, right? Big choices that are different here, and I could imagine both of these being good in different situations. Germ, then again, Incarn versus Convoke, improved Innervate, which if you cast Innervate on somebody else, you gain its effect at 50% effectiveness. Mana regen increased 5% as a passive. Why has it got to be 50%, man? Why has it got to be 50%? Then we got, again, Adaptive Swarm. I think all the Druid specs can take Adaptive Swarm as a choice on row 10. Or not as a choice, just as an option on row 10. Then we've got Dark Titan's Lesson. Life Bloom 2 targets. This was a reasonably niche Legion legendary, if I recall correctly. Photosynthesis. When Life Bloom is on yourself, your periodic heals heal 20% faster. When it's on an ally, your hots have a chance to cause it to trigger its big heal effect. Circle Life and Death again. This one's just nice damage as well if you're going for a damage Resto Druid build. This thing has been traditionally pretty good. Improved Incarn versus Improved Convoke. Ephemeral Incarnation. Every 3 casts of Swift Bend grants you Incarn for 9 seconds. Pretty sure that's their 4 set right now, right? And then, yeah, Flourish versus Verdant Infusion. Swift Mend, instead of consuming, extends your hots. So, again, a pretty potentially powerful tank healing effect versus a potentially pretty powerful everybody healing effect. and then finally rejuve, duplicate, hack. So yeah, all in all, I don't know. I think these talent trees are pretty exciting. I'm sure Wowhead will very soon, if they haven't literally in the time that I've been recording this video, created a thing to let you like preview the buttons and like mouse over them, see what they look like. And that will be really fun to mess around with. I'm sure that that's literally going to be out before I can get this video uploaded, but should be a lot of fun to play around with and to start having an idea of what builds might look like. I'm very excited about this talent tree system. I think that worst case, even if things kind of have a lot of dominant choices, I think still the nature of it means that there's going to be opportunities for good players to create some really good choices and pick some good options. So I'm looking forward to playing with these a lot, and I'm especially looking forward to just theory crafting and looking through. Anyways, hope you enjoyed this video. Hope you're excited by the talent trees too. Again, I'll have a link to this in the description below, and I guess I'll make a Death Knight one as well since that one's out too, so stay tuned for that video soon also. Okay, one more thing I didn't notice before the video's over. Mark of the Wild is back for Druids, so I guess maybe they're going to be adding more class buffs to everybody. Is their solution to the class buff meta right now? Here it's speed and crit chance and reduced magic damage taken. Now, my preferred solution to class buffs was to delete all of them, because right now there are like 5 classes and a couple extra specs that have really powerful raid buffs that you need to bring. I do think that every class having a raid buff is better than that, but I think even better than that would be if they didn't exist. But yeah, that's at least an important piece of development, another important piece of news as well. All right, now goodbye.